technical difficulties that we're facing. So we take this opportunity to start with Apache Thales and how it is being used by a higher level system as of today to actually make material benefit in its performance. I will initially cover the initial an overview of Thales. It's hard to go into a lot of detail in such a short space of time, but I'll try to motivate what the underpinnings of the system are, and then we'll try to give some practical use that Hive has made of the system that Thales has provided. So what is Apache Thales? It's a distributed system, an engine to run data parallel distributed computation. Its underpinnings stem from MapReduce, where there was a data parallel map phase followed by a reduce phase. But we saw a lot of problems with Hadoop 1 and MapReduce. How many people are familiar with MapReduce and Hadoop over here? Oh, that's fine. So all of you know what the problems with MapReduce and Hadoop 1 are, which is that the same system is both a resource management system as well as an execution engine and an end-user facing API. And doing all three of them together would make life easy for a certain set of applications, but make it really difficult for every other application which wants to do data processing on Hadoop data on MapReduce. It was hard to express what you wanted to do because everything had to look like MapReduce, and it was hard to make optimizations because the framework itself was monolithic and rigid. And those are the problems that we tried to solve when we finally had Yarn in Hadoop 2, where Yarn took out the resource management layer of Hadoop and gave it as an independent service so that multiple different applications could use the same Hadoop cluster and run their own specific data processing. Now, since that opening up has happened in the Hadoop space, we felt that there is the need for a new modern engine that doesn't provide a user-facing API, but provides the building blocks where the engine does the hard part of interacting with Hadoop and Yarn and getting resources and scheduling and moving data, whereas the applications like Hive, Pig, Cascading, which are user-facing applications, can now use the benefits provided and the inbuilt flexibilities and services provided by these building blocks to actually do the things that they're supposed to do in an elegant manner. So, just to give a very quick overview, what is data flow and how does it work in Hadoop? Data is spread across different machines, and typically a data flow looks like a workflow or a data flow graph, like the one over here. Code runs on certain machines, produces data, that data goes to a different machine, is being consumed at a different machine. So a data flow graph, the work consists of vertices and edges, where vertices are code which runs and transforms the data, and edges represent data flowing from one piece of code to another piece of code. So we observed that most data flow processing systems or data processing systems like Hive, etc., or ETL systems, they very naturally map to such a DAG of computation. And that is what we want to easily and naturally express in Thales. So the two themes for Thales are: how do you naturally express the computation that you want to express? Earlier, that was hard to do because everything had to look like MapReduce and not what it should be. And the second part is, when you actually run that computation physically on the cluster, how can you do it in the most efficient manner possible? So, we quickly jump into the expressibility aspect. We have a DAG API in Thales, which is a very visual structural API in which you can use things like create a vertex, add a vertex, and connect vertices using edges. This way you can very visually think about your workflow or your DAG of computation and express it and express that topology using this API. Now, what does a vertex represent? A vertex represents the processing that is being done on that data. And an edge represents how that data is being transferred from the producer to the consumer. So there is an example tag on the right which shows two maps followed by two reduces, which are then joining the data from the two reduces. And the example code on the left shows how we've defined the maps, and how we've defined the edges to produce this logical plan. This is a logical plan. It's not, it has not been expanded to the actual concurrent tasks on the cluster. The interesting things over here are the properties on the edges, especially that scatter-gather property which you see. That tells the framework how to expand that graph at runtime. And here is the three different properties that you can set on that edge. You can set a one-to-one property which maps to the top right connection pattern at runtime. You can set a broadcast property which means that the output produced by a task will be available to all downstream tasks. Or you can have a scatter-gather edge property, which is the bottom right connection, which represents the typical shuffle repartitioning case that MapReduce does. So given these definitions and the previous logical plan, you can see how Tejas can actually expand that logical graph which is in the middle to a physical graph at runtime based on the distribution of the data, how it expands that graph to actually run that. So the second map 2 has been expanded to 3 tasks. The first map has been expanded to 2 tasks, and the rest of the connections are derived from the scatter-gather property of the edge. So this is an example of a simple DAG that you can construct using the Tejas API. And this is handwritten. Clearly, when an advanced system like Hive is trying to compile a very complicated SQL statement into a DAG of operators, it can be way more complex than this, and sometimes hard to visualize. Now, once we've defined our DAG of computation, which says where will the data move from A to B and what I will do with it, we need to be able to run tasks on each of the machines in the cluster to actually do that computation. The way we've broken up tasks is we've broken them up into 3 pieces: inputs, processor, and outputs. And we've defined a very thin wrapping API such that you can take any arbitrary user code, wrap it on in that API which you see on top, and we will be able to invoke that Java code and run that task as a combination of the inputs that you specified, the processor that you specified, and the outputs that you specified. How do you, an example would help us try and understand what this means, and we'll take the MapReduce example. So what does a map look like in Tejas? It's this left box here, where there is an HDFS input, a map processor that maps from one key value pair to another key value pair, and an intermediate file sorted output, sorted partitioned output. A reducer will become the counterpart of the partition sorted output, which is a shuffle input, a reduced processor, and an HDFS output. So using this abstraction, we have been able to easily map is the wrong word, but we've been able to easily transform MapReduce into an example of a Tejas application, which is 2 vertices connected by a scatter-gather edge and these 2 processors running in those 2 vertices. So today, you can take any MapReduce job that you have, change a config, and you can actually run it on Tejas. And it'll work exactly as it would have, it'll give you exactly the same results as a MapReduce job would. And Tejas comes built in with this feature so that you can easily start running your existing MapReduce applications on Tejas while you actually try to take advantage of the advanced APIs and do better than what MapReduce does for you. The next thing that we worked on is we made it easy for you to use Tejas because there's nothing to deploy. You just take your build of Tejas and upload it to HDFS and point the config to the Tejas client, and it will pick up that version of Tejas, which means that you can have 4 different versions of Tejas running on the cluster at the same time. Your applications will pick up the specified version and they'll run independent of the other applications. So you can have a production version of Tejas, which is running your production jobs, while you still try out an experiment or the next-gen version without affecting the production version. Now that is the ease of use. The second aspect that we have tried to focus on Tejas is how can we get as much performance and efficiency benefits straight out of the box, built into the system. And secondly, how can we let the users plug in their optimizations where they know what changes they want to make to the plan or the job that is running at runtime. So let's go over the simple things first and then we come to the more advanced things. What are the performance optimizations that you get just because you're not running on MapReduce? You've done a very bare bones transformation of your application into a Tez application. You will not have your HDFS writes in between. You will not have to run an extra wave of maps after every reduce. Your jobs will not go to the job queue and wait for them to get scheduled on the cluster because it's all one job. So there's a lot more predictability and a lot less overhead for that same application the moment it runs on Tez, even though you have not used any of the advanced features. But what else can we do? Tez comes built in with a lot of knowledge that the developers of Tez had about the Yarn platform itself in Hadoop. And we've tried to make sure that we use all the resources that Yarn gives to a Tez job as efficiently as possible. So we will try to reuse resources that we have been given by Yarn to run more than one task. So when we get, so for people who are not familiar with Yarn, in Hadoop 1 there were map slots and reduce slots. In the Yarn paradigm, these slots have gone away and what you get is a general purpose container which represents an arbitrary amount of memory and CPU on the machine. So when you ask for what you would earlier in Hadoop 1 get as slots, you now get as containers in Yarn. So Tez runs a task in a container, but it can actually see that it is not going to get any more containers from Yarn because it's already reached its resource limit, and it will try to reuse the containers to run more than one task. So that is what this diagram is saying, that we will try to run more than one task on the container. But you can actually do better than that. Because there are multiple tasks running on the same container, they can actually use the shared memory on that container to avoid decomputing stuff or redoing stuff that they've already done. And we in Tez provide a shared object registry. You can think of it as a very glorified hash map, but we are trying to make it a lot better than that. But you can put in a piece of an object with a key in one task, and you can retrieve that object with the same key in a different task. And you can assign lifetimes to how long you will hold on to that object for you in the cache. Thus, something that has already been computed by a task doesn't need to be recomputed unnecessarily by another task which runs on that same container. That gives you better performance. And finally, the advanced topic in optimization is how can you plug in optimization at runtime to change the graph that you're actually running. One example of that is, it's an age-old example in MapReduce, is how do I figure out the correct number of reducers in my job? It's hard to do it when you're submitting the job because a mapper could read a gigabyte and output a gigabyte. A map could read a gigabyte and output a kilobyte. And this difference in data is hard to estimate beforehand, and so you do not know how many reducers to run so that you're not running too many or too little. So how do we fix that? How do we fix that problem in Tez? And this is a place where we've invested a lot because we believe that a lot of performance can be gained by making these kind of optimizations. And this slide kind of gives you where the different places in the Tez execution engine where we allowed users to plug in their code so that they can give hints to the execution engine on what to do next. So you see there is a vertex manager which manages the concurrency and scheduling of a vertex. That is, it determines how many tasks will run in this vertex and when will any one task run. Then there are two different schedulers which determine the priority of the tasks when they run, so that you can say that my map will run before my reduce, or 50% of my reduces will run before all my maps are done, so on and so forth. And I'll give you an example of how we are able to leverage this kind of a pluggable architecture in order to solve the problem of determining the correct number of reducers in your job. So let's say this is the initial job that we have. It's a map reduce job where there are 3 map vertices and 3 reduce vertices. And there is that vertex manager that I showed, which is a user pluggable component that allows user code to be injected into the Tez runtime and affect its decision making. we can collect data size statistics from the map tasks as they are running. And these statistics can be sent back to this user code running in the Vertex manager. When it gets enough data or enough statistics, it can actually extrapolate and say, you know what, 50% of my maps are done and I've only produced a gigabyte of output. So it's likely that when 100% of my maps are done, I'll produce 2 gigabytes of output. Then it can figure out that 100 reducers are not required to process 2 gigabytes of output. I probably need only 10. In this case, 3 is too much, and it says, you know what, I can get rid of that last reducer. It gets rid of the last reducer and also changes the way the outputs from the map are transferred to the reduced tasks, as you can see in that diagram. And this is all done using APIs that Taze exposes and which you can override in your code to do something similar. And thus, we have figured out that we need only 2 reducers to run this job instead of 3. This and other optimizations are already in place in the execution engine and being utilized by Hive and Pig. But all that comes built into the Taze platform, but they are using Taze APIs in order to implement that. And you are also in a position to leverage those same APIs and do the same optimizations, because both these pieces of code will be written against the same APIs. There's nothing special happening inside Taze for all of these built-in operators. You can see that edge connection between the map and the reduced task. That is neither a one-to-one edge, nor a broadcast edge, nor a scatter-gather edge, technically. It's a custom edge. How was that plugged in? Because there is actually an edge that all these 3 edges which come in Taze, they are built in, but they are built using an edge API, which users can actually provide an implementation for and do their custom logic. So you're not restricted to only these 3 types of connections when you're using Taze. So using these pluggable components, you can actually customize your processing to the level that satisfies your application, basically. Taze sessions, in the same performance aspect, Taze sessions are akin to database sessions, where you have a connection open to the engine with your database engine or your processing engine, and you allow multiple queries to reuse and share data or reuse the resources across queries. And this was a feature which we did for Hive so that the query performance in Hive can improve for standard use cases that the Hive has. What does Taze session do? It does very standard tricks which most databases or most even operating systems play. It pre-warms a set of containers before it gets any DAG so that everything is ready for you to run. It then reuses tasks across those containers. And then it intelligently releases containers and acquires new containers based on locality, so that you always have a readily available pool of resources to run, and there is no upfront, initialization overhead in your task or in your job. So, what is the USP for Taze? The USP for Taze is that with MapReduce, there were certain restrictions in expressibility and performance. We want to solve those restrictions, but at the same time, we don't want to throw away all the learnings that we've made with this kind of a system. There is a certain advantage to being flexible in the amount of work that you can do with a certain amount of resources. You can run fast with a lot of resources. You can run slowly with fewer resources, but you will still complete. There is an advantage to having a fault tolerance model where losing a certain resource in the cluster is not going to bring down the entire computation. You can actually just redo that small part and be done. Using a server does not mean that you lost the entire history. So there are certain good things which this old system had, which if we had tried to re-implement completely, we would have probably had to redo and face those problems again. But we are trying to keep that. So scalability, fault tolerance, flexibility of resources, and getting the job done no matter how busy or how free the cluster is. That's what we don't want to lose. But at the same time, we want to give you the ability to do a lot of customization as well as express your computation as efficiently as possible. We are an open source Apache incubator project. In about a year, we've already had like 1,000 odd GRs open, which is work items. You've resolved 700 of them, growing community. Testing quality are definitely of great importance. The last time I ran code coverage on all the new code that we wrote, we were at like 60 or 70% coverage. We've already deployed the code to multiple multi-node environments, and it's solid, it works, it's stable. As I mentioned, we already can run all the MapReduce jobs that have been written because it's a very simple example of the DAG that is possible to run on Taze. Hive has already been retargeted to use Taze as its execution engine with Hive 13, that's official. Pig has already finished the work on the basic transformation of Pig Latin scripts into Taze DAGs, and that's also going to trunk in the near future. Cascading, Cascalogs, Scalding, that family of languages is also starting to embrace Taze as their execution engine so that they can get the same benefits and performance and scalability that Hive and Pig have already realized. What are we looking forward at? More power to the user by richer graph manipulations, more performance optimizations, for example, high concurrency queries, richer control of parallelism, as well as better debugging, dev support, APIs, developer tools, so that you can write a Taze job in Eclipse with all the drop-down menus and everything. We are really looking forward to all the early adopters. If you have any high-level language that transforms into a data flow graph, if you have any ETL processing that you're doing and you want to improve the performance, we urge you to give Taze a shot because we think that it's a strong match for such use cases. We have a meetup. It's actually in the Bay Area, but hopefully if there's a big community, we can do a meetup here also. We run a technical blog series at Hortonworks where we go into details on all the features that we have actually described, and we'll soon start a blog series on how to write applications on your own. For anybody who wants to start contributing, we have the work tracking Apache Jira Assault standard Apache process. The code is on GitHub for you to look at. You can pick up a Jira, search for the newbie tag, look for these simple Jiras, contribute a patch, start getting into the community. If you're just interested in using and just want help on some API or something, there are the user lists and dev lists. If you find a bug, then please log an issue on the issues main list. So I'll not spend too much time on these takeaways, but I'll let my colleague Kantar try to give you a taste of how Hive has actually used the different features that Taze has exposed in order to get performance benefits and actually do things that earlier Hive could not do. It just could not express that computation, but now it can. Kantar?
Hey everyone, let me just switch presentations real quick.